Many people have asked the question, what is an HBCU? Many don't know what this acronym means, how these things came to be, and the deeply rooted significance weighing on not only Black culture, but Black American history. It all started in the city of Philadelphia, way back in 1837. Richard Franklin Humphreys came from the British Virgin Islands as a silversmith Quaker. After race riots in Philly, he extended his brotherly love by dedicating 1/10 of his estate to establish the Institute of Colored Youth. Today, most of us, know it as Cheyney University of Pennsylvania. HBCUs were created to give the Black community a chance to excel in life, a chance to be educated, to educate others, a chance for Black Americans to reach their full potential, to make a difference for the better. This is the history that literally puts the H in HBCUs, historically Black college or university.
Man, it's a great moment. It's a great moment for my good friend. It's a great moment for Jackson State. It's a great moment for HBCUs, historically Black colleges and university. I mean, what better place to go? I know Coach Saban works with the DBs at Alabama, but he ain't Prime. And if Prime says, well, this is what you need to do and this is why this happened, you listen. He has your undivided attention. Yep. To get a guy at this level, FCS has never gotten a guy in the top 50. HBCUs have never gotten a guy this high, and they got one. 11-1. I think they play this week in the Heritage Classic. They play South Carolina State with a chance to go 12-1.
11-1 they are.
He's built something special. Yep. Mm-hmm. He has these guys. His son was, I think, Jerry Rice. He was freshman of the year. Mm-hmm. And the time was Coach Robinson, Coach of the Year. Yep. Doing big things down there. I'm so happy for him and for the HBCUs.
I would like to remind everyone that once upon a time, HBCUs were a pro pipeline.
Oh, yeah.
Shannon Sharp went to an HBCU.
Yeah. Jerry Rice, Walter Payton, Michael Strahan, Aeneas Williams, Mel Blunt.
Keep going. Steve McNair, Doug Williams. But I love the choice this young man made because I believe in Deion as a teacher and a mentor. He loves kids.
He does. Deion Sanders, knowing him like I do. That's what he's always wanted to coach. Ever since he got into coaching, he started coaching his son at high school at Trinity. That's all he's talked about.
I believe that Travis Hunter will be at least as prepared for pro football as he would have been via Florida State.
No question about it.
At least.
No question.
If not more than.
Skip, if you can play, you can play. Because Walter Payton went to Jackson State. Jerry Rice went to Mississippi Valley. Steve McNair went to Alcorn. I went to Savannah State.
Too Tall Jones.
Tennessee State. Richard Dent went to Tennessee State.
There you go.
A lot of these guys.
Okay.
Willie Lanier, Malin East, Art Shell.
As a writer at heart myself, I read this full post that this kid posted yesterday.
Yeah.
He can really write. And I'm going to assume he wrote it because it felt like he wrote it. He has writing talent. He has creative gift. I encourage anybody to just go look at his IG post because it's special to me. And he gets it. And for an 18-year-old to have that kind of vision and wisdom was highly impressive to me.
I got a chance to make a change in history.
Hello, everyone. A historic day in HBCU football. For the first time in history, a five-star athlete, not only a five-star, the #1 football prospect in the country has signed with an HBCU, and that school is Jackson State University.
I like this one. It fit me well, but that ain't who I want to be. Florida State always been on my mind. But check me out, Mom. Throw me that hat.
It all happened on Wednesday. Travis Hunter, he's rated #1 in the country by 24/7 Sports. ESPN has him at #2. We're not going to split hairs. The top prospect, a defensive back, grew up idolizing Deion Sanders. Travis Hunter had initially committed to Florida State University because he wanted to be just like Deion Sanders. But in November, he took a visit to the Jackson State versus Alcorn State game. the Soul Bowl, Capital City Classic. Same vibe, and you know that vibe. And something had to happen because today, Travis Hunter going to Jackson State University.
I'm just ready to work. That's pretty much it. I'm just ready to go ahead and go and get to Jackson, Mississippi.
Okay, let's read you some things that Travis Hunter had to say on the heels of this historic announcement, shunning schools from the ACC, the SEC, to sign with Jackson State out of the SWAC. He says, "It's a dream that is hard to let go of, but sometimes we are called to step into a bigger future than the one we imagine for ourselves, that dream being playing at Florida State." He goes on to say, "For me, that future is at Jackson State University." He also said, "Historically black colleges and universities have a rich history in football. I want to be part of that history, and more, I want to be part of that future. I am making this decision so that I can light the way for others to follow, make it a little easier for the next player to recognize that HBCUs may be everything you want and more." Deion Sanders, what a week. I mean, being in the Celebration Bowl is like enough, right? Shedeur Sanders at the beginning of the week named top freshman in FCS football. The next day, on Tuesday, Deion Sanders named the top coach, the Eddie Robinson Award, in FCS football. And then he teased us on social media saying he's going to make history on National Signing Day, which is Wednesday, today, as you and I talk here. And boy, did he ever. The #1 prospect in the country idolized Deion Sanders. It only makes sense to go play for him, right? What a day. Travis Hunter going to Jackson State University. The momentum, the revolution, the revival of HBCUs, and particularly HBCU football, continues. It's only Wednesday. Who knows what's going to happen on Thursday? We'll find out. Oh, the comments will be fun on this one, I'm sure. Travis Hunter, #1 prospect in the country, signs with Jackson State University and head coach Deion Sanders.
Turn around. He got his darn name on the back of his jersey. You can turn back around. Why we don't do that in the SWAC? Is it that expensive to put the darn name on the back of the jerseys? Don't you think his mama and them want to see their baby name on the back of the jerseys? Don't you think his siblings, his friends, his family, his loved ones? That's the kind of stuff we take for granted. I don't. I'm very detailed. That guy worked his butt off, did what he had to do, changed his whole composite of his thought process. We can at least put his darn name on the back of his jersey. How simple is that? What is that, an extra $5 a jersey? I'd take care for the whole SWAC if they do it. Costs us a help. Well, you already out there. You already blessed the whole team with suits. It's my business manager who makes it happen for me and him. But those are the type of things. We're very detailed. We're very detailed with the little things. And our kids deserve that, don't they?
For decades, historically black colleges and universities were a haven for African American players, particularly Southern black players who weren't allowed to play for schools like Alabama, Florida, or Texas. While HBCUs had limited financial resources, their teams regularly featured some of the country's best players.
Come on, come on!
Integration changed all that.
In American society, integration takes place in the hands of white institutions. Major college football integration begins to look like that in the sense of sort of, not bringing HBCU teams into your conference, but instead just sort of allowing more and more elite black players into your programs and not caring that HBCU programs might suffer or eventually die because of that.
HBCUs had always been part of what made college football great. Black colleges started playing the game in the early 1890s, and by the 1920s produced stars like Ben Stevenson, a devastating running back for Tuskegee. Like the sport as a whole, HBCU football was dominated by high-powered coaches. Hall of Famers like Jake Gaither at Florida A&M and Eddie Robinson at Grambling, the first college coach to win 400 games.
In order for us to have success, you got to put strength on strength and let weakness go to hell. Now, this is what you're going to have.
And they were able to draw on an immense pool of talented players.
Let's get off, let's get off!
When you're talking about historical black college, they never got the due that they so rightly deserve. You can't tell me the players that we had to come out of the historical black schools was not better or as good as the guys back in those days who was thought of as Heisman Trophy candidates.
By the 1960s, it was impossible to ignore how good HBCU football had become. In 1963, the Kansas City Chiefs took Grambling's Buck Buchanan with the first pick in the draft. And over the next 15 years, more than 500 HBCU players were drafted, including some of the best players in pro football history.
Alabama, all the schools in the Southeastern Conference who were saying that, you know, blacks weren't good enough to play, which is why Grambling was loaded, why Texas Southern was loaded, why Prairie View was loaded, why Tennessee State was loaded.
The first time that ball is snapped, you got to knock hell out of him and let him know one thing, that boy, you gonna be in trouble this evening. And the type of ball player you are, you should try to take his head off his shoulder.
This was an era when Grambling was producing more players in the pros than Notre Dame. This was a golden era for black college football.
In 1968, HBCU football felt poised to cross over into mainstream prominence, and Grambling and Morgan State ventured up north for the first time to play a game in the country's biggest market and most famous stadium.
I was one of 3 freshmen who made the Morgan State football team. And this was like a huge deal. To go to Yankee Stadium, my first college football game, we went through Harlem, and it was just a whole thing. And you gotta remember 1968, Dr. King got assassinated. There were like riots everywhere. This was a time, everything, whether it was a football game, everything was about race. And it flowed into everything you did. So we all knew that there was more at stake. And I remember we went out there for pregame warm-ups, and there was like, people were just coming in, they were just milling in. Big Yankee Stadium was kind of empty. And so we said, oh man, okay, well, what's this about? But it was still just a big deal just to be there. Then we went back inside, to put our stuff on and all that. And then it was time to go out. And I remember going out, and all of a sudden, the place, there were 63,000 people there, and it was unbelievable. There was like the Grambling band, the Morgan band, and when we came out, the place went nuts. And none of us had ever seen these many people before. And these are all black folks in the stands. It was remarkable. It was the most emotional moment I'd been a part of, because people knew that this was a big deal, not only for us, but for black college football. It all merged. This was a black power, black pride, black consciousness. And the fact that we filled it up, we sold it out, and we put on this great show.
But just as HBCU football was finally getting its moment in the sun, the foundations of its success were about to be eroded by desegregation.
We talk about this celebration of the Morgan Grambling game and how great it was because all this talent was on display. Well, that was great, but it was also became a problem, and that became, the beginning of the end of this sort of black dominance.
Tell the back where he's going, Jim. Let's go. All right, let's go. All right, come on. Hurry.
And all these great players, we kind of had to ourselves, and all of a sudden, you began to be recruiting against institutions that you really couldn't really recruit against, all these big white institutions.
Rutledge, outside from Nathan. He scores!
By the end of the 1970s, the starters on Bear Bryant's formerly all-white Alabama team were 40% black, and he'd won 3 more national championships.
By 1979, the handwriting was on the wall. It was over.
The more the previously all-white schools integrated, the less the top black players across the country were drawn to HBCUs. The era of great HBCU football was done. Since the decline of HBCUs, college football has come to be dominated by formerly all-white schools of the South. 12 of the last 13 national champions are from the South. And the irony is, it's all been accomplished with players they resisted allowing in for so long.
It's going to be black labor, white wealth. We're going to take your best, your most valuable people, and put them into our institutions to make us stronger, and at the same time, make yours crumble. And that became the model of integration.
All we're asking you, to give it what you got and try to do what we know how to do. Now let's get after it. Come on, let's go.